I describe myself as a loner. I feel comfortable with cats.
Hello and welcome to Happily Ever Reality. I am so glad you're here. Today we are talking about 90 Day Fiancé The Other Way, Season 4, Episode 5. I'm just going to jump into talking about this standout couple from this season, and that is 67-year-old Debbie with 24-year-old Osama. We're introduced to Osama in this episode, and he is clearly an individual. He says that he's a loner, he's a cat lover, he's an artist and a poet, and a farmer. So he is a lot of different things, but you can tell he's a quirky, eccentric individual. And you know what? So is Debbie. I actually was surprised when I was watching it. I thought this could be a good match. Like, they could end up being a good couple if they can get past that massive age difference. And I want to say this because it's often brought up. You know, when it's an older woman with a younger guy, people tend to applaud it or let it slide. And then when it's an older man with a younger girl, people are, more judgmental. I definitely think this age difference is huge and probably a really bad idea. It is a little bit creepy to me. It's a little less creepy than it was before once I saw them both. Like when I saw Osama, I was like, he's really kind of, he's kind of like Debbie. It might be a good match, but there is still that part of me that's like, she should have probably just shut down the romantic side of it herself. Like, she had a responsibility to say to him, like, I'm too much older than you. This isn't going to go any further. But she didn't do that, clearly. And they both seem to have feelings for each other. So maybe they're going to make a great couple. During this episode, you can tell that Debbie's children are not happy at all. Her son Julian makes it perfectly clear over and over he does not want his mom to go to Morocco. He at one point in the airport offers to pay her. Like, how much money do I have to give you to not go? And she's going. She actually gives herself the nickname Determined Debbie because she is determined to go there. So her son is not on board for this. They end up going to a law firm before she leaves and meeting with an attorney to talk about how to protect her assets. We find out that Debbie's not going to get rid of her house. And I think that is excellent. That is a great decision because if this doesn't work out, she can come home and her house is still there. She does not think that's going to happen, though. She believes this is going to be wonderful. She thinks this is going to work out. So she is holding on to it to give it to her children, but I just think it's good in case things don't go well in Morocco. She can just come home. But her son is clearly really very sad that she is leaving. There's a scene at the airport where they're saying goodbye and he's like, I'm not good at goodbyes, so I'm going to go. And he leaves. And I just have this feeling like he got in his car and cried. I think this is really hard for him. You can tell he's worried about what's going to happen to her when she's over there, and he's very worried about Osama's motives. So that is Debbie and Osama in this episode. Let me know what you guys think about him and them together. I think they might be a good match. I just think this age difference is going to be a huge obstacle. Let me know in the comments what you think. Next, let's talk about Jamie and Kris. I like Jamie. I like Kris. I don't necessarily think Jamie and Kris are going to make a great couple. I sort of feel like these are two people that had fun flirting online, but that is where they should have left it. I don't think the chemistry is there the way they thought, and I think there's just too many surprises coming up. Now that they're meeting in person, rushing into this wedding is going to be a terrible idea, at least in my opinion. During this episode, we find out that the language barrier is becoming a bigger issue for them. So they're using one of those translation devices, like one of those handheld ones. And as soon as they brought this up, I immediately thought of Devin, who went to South Korea and had to use a translation device to talk to everyone. It was such a mess. But Kris and Jamie are doing that now. We find out that Kris is concerned about her safety there. She has heard that Colombia is a very unsafe place. She is moving there from Alabama, and in Alabama she had always carried some sort of protection, like a weapon, on her, and she wants to get a knife to carry while she is there. You can tell that Jamie just thinks this is crazy. This is not something Jamie is worried about, and she doesn't understand it, but she is going to go along with it, and she takes Kris to a store that sells weapons. Kris ends up buying a knife while she is there. You can just see that Jamie is like, what is this woman thinking? But Jamie, goes along with it and helps her buy one. But we also find out that Jamie is just overwhelmed by a lot of things that she's learning about Kris. There's the narcolepsy. She knew about that. She knew about the car wrecks. But then there's like this allergy to mint and the fact that Kris is going to need more surgeries and that Kris is in pain a lot. There's just things that are kind of coming out, and they're coming out very quickly. She's learning all of this stuff in 2 days. And so far, it's felt like Jamie hasn't really surprised Kris with any information. There's nothing that Jamie is saying that seems to really be shocking to Kris. So it's just Jamie taking in all this new information, and you can tell she is questioning whether or not this was a good idea. Next, let's talk about Jenny and Sumit 2.0, and that is Jen and Rishi. In the last episode, Jen was really upset over a conversation she had with Rishi, and the night had not ended well, but when we start this episode, it's morning, she slept on things, and she has calmed down. She has decided she still wants to follow through with meeting Rishi's family. Now, Rishi doesn't think it's a good idea for them to go alone, just him and her, so he decides to bring a friend as well, and they all meet at Jen's apartment. Now, they start chit-chatting a little bit, and Jen just asks the friend, "Do you think this is a good idea?" He says, "Absolutely not. This is a terrible idea, and the family is definitely going to be suspicious." The friend also throws out there that Rishi's parents are looking for a wife for him. Now, here's the thing. This is news to Jen, but I think Jen is a smart enough woman to know that this was probably happening. I think somewhere in the back of her mind, she's like, the family is looking for him a wife. Like, she can't tell me she wasn't thinking it, but this is the first time she's hearing it. She is upset, but she holds it together. She is still determined to go and meet his family. Now, they ride over to the house, and she's definitely making jabs. At one point, she's like, "I'm glad," and she's talking to the friend, like, "I'm glad you're here because I don't want to sit by Rishi right now." So she's upset, but she's still going. The three of them arrive at Rishi's family's home, and I want to point this out in case you missed it. The friend that comes with him, he should have brought himself some popcorn because he is grinning ear to ear every time they show him on camera. Okay, I was editing this and decided I needed to actually put in some pictures to prove my point. Here it is. I guess he could be super excited to be on TV, but I still think he finds a little bit of this amusing. I think he thinks it's a terrible idea and he's enjoying watching it. But Jen ends up sitting down with the family and talking to them. Now, she's not meeting them the first time. She's met them before, but it was all before COVID, so it's like she's kind of being reintroduced to the family. She starts asking questions. She says, "I've been to one wedding for this family. Am I going to get to go to another two? Because there are two single sons." And she just starts asking questions directed to the mom, trying to find out if the mom is wanting Rishi to get married, and is she trying to arrange a marriage? And basically the mom says, yeah, she's been looking for over a year, but there's always something wrong with the women that make them, not a good match for Rishi. So she's not having any luck. Now, this is news to Jen. She doesn't realize that the mom has been looking for as long as she has. So she's upset, but she keeps it together. During a confessional, she says she really just wanted to tell the family everything, but decided not to because she thinks Rishi should have to do it. It's his job to tell them, and he should have to do the work, so she's not going to be the one to break the news to them. Now, when she's talking to them, she ends up saying that she has moved there. Rishi didn't tell them that. Rishi said that she was visiting. So Jen is telling them something they didn't know. They didn't know she had moved into the city. I keep wondering if they all realized something was up. Like, it just seems weird. She doesn't mention that she has like a great job there, or she doesn't have a real reason to be moving to this city outside of her, like, having a friendship with Rishi. She doesn't disclose anything to them about her motives, and I wonder if the family realizes there is more going on here. I do think Rishi is going to have to do something sooner than later, because Jen is only going to go along with this for so long if she thinks that the mom is trying to arrange a marriage. So he's going to have to do something. At least that's what I think. I know in the past we've seen Jenny and Submit, and he didn't even tell his parents he got married. So I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'm going to be surprised. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now we're going to move on to Gabe and Isabel. This is the couple that I think is going to make it. They have everything going for them, at least in my opinion. If he can get past being in another country and trying to run his business, I think it's possible they could work. I really like the two of them. In this episode, we don't, there's not really a whole lot to see. They are out doing business stuff together. I was surprised to learn that Isabel had already quit her job. I really thought she was someone who would want to maintain financial independence, but she's already stopped working and is working for Gabe. In this episode, we just see that things are complicated for him. He's got back orders. People are ordering the products that he makes, but he's not ready to ship the stuff. It's gotten much more complicated for him. I think, though, if they can get past that, they're going to do fine. There's really not a lot in this episode about them, but I do like them together. I just want to throw that out there. I like these two. Now let's head over to Egypt with Nicole and Mahmoud. Now I have to say something about his name. I thought his name was Mahmoud, and I realized there was a second M, so I decided to come to YouTube and listen to how other YouTubers said it, and they all say Mahmoud, like the second M. But when Nicole says his name, I don't hear the second M in the name. So I'm going to stick with what I've heard other people say, but let me know in the comments if I'm butchering his name. Do you think there should be a second M? Is it Mahmoud or Mahmoud? I'm going with Mahmoud though. So that's what we're going to do today. Nicole and Mahmoud are definitely the couple that I am most invested in watching. It's really interesting to me to watch Nicole because it's like watching someone who is fighting every instinct they have. I think she knows this isn't going to work. I don't think she likes being in Egypt. I think she cares about Mahmoud, but I really don't think the relationship was good enough to justify her going back a second time. The only thought the only thing I can think is that she must feel pressure to try to make the marriage work. I also wondered if she feels pressure because they've already maybe committed to being on the show. So, I don't know. But to me, it's like you just see it all over her face. Her face reads of regret and uneasiness the entire time. I don't even think she looked happy at the airport when they were first seeing each other. Of course, at the airport, he then told her that she needed to button her shirt up, which her body was completely covered, but he wanted her jacket buttoned up, which made her unhappy. But I just think this is someone who got in way over their head, and she kind of admits it in this episode. I'm amazed that she thinks going back is going to work. In this episode, we see Mahmoud really try to make her comfortable. He walks her around in the city, but of course they immediately have issues. She wants to go into a cafe, but he explains to her that there are cafes for men and cafes for women. He doesn't know if she can go into this one. They end up sitting down and they find out that it's fine that she is there. But while they're sitting there, she really begins insisting that she wants to meet his friends. She wants to go out to dinner with friends. And he gives in. He agrees to it. But he says, "You're never going to ask for this again." And when he said that, I was like, he didn't seem angry, but it kind of the words altogether sounded like a threat. It was a really weird thing to say. But then when the dinner happens, you understand it's just so awkward. And she comes on camera and basically says, like, "I'm never going to ask for this again, and I should have listened to my husband." No one is mean to her. I've not seen anyone be rude to her at all. His family seems to like her. Her friends, or his friends, seem to like her when they met her. There doesn't seem to be any issues. It's just she is not adjusting well to this culture and, their social norms. I don't understand. I think what is weird to me is, she's almost 40 years old. She must have known, right? She must have known. I know that I'm not going to do well in a country like that because and when I say like that, I mean where they have those sort of restrictions and they have differences in how people socialize and where they go. Like, I've never even been to Egypt, but I've heard enough about it. I know that's not somewhere I should live. I just wouldn't adjust well to that. So I wouldn't go there. You can't tell me she didn't know that. Like, she didn't know at all that there are countries that are more restrictive about this. She was there. She didn't pick up on anything. She didn't hear anything about Egypt before she went there. And then her converting to being Muslim, if you watch the scene, she basically says she decided to do it because it was so easy to do. She just had to say some words. And she believed them. Like, she believed the words she was saying. I don't remember what they were, guys, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't lengthy or complicated. So she did it because it was just so easy. Like, do you live under a rock? Like, what? What do you mean? Who converts to a religion without giving it any thought, like any real significant thought about how their life is going to change? You know, religion, all religions have to do with your life and death. Like, what do you think will happen after you die? Who do you think created Earth? Who are you going to worship? Who goes and converts without giving it any significant thought? No, like, something is weird about this whole situation. And we find out in this episode, she really kept it all a secret from her family. They actually ask her, like, I believe they asked directly, like, are you going to convert to being Muslim? And she goes, I already did. She didn't tell her family and friends because they were all going to be telling her this is a bad idea. And I think she knew somewhere in her heart and mind this was a terrible idea. She just wasn't ready for it. She hadn't done enough research. She hadn't really given it enough thought. She should have talked to the people she knew so that they could help guide her as friends and family. They care about her. Their advice to her wasn't going to be bad. It was going to be out of love and concern. But she knew they were going to tell her this was a bad idea. So this is the couple I'm the most interested in watching, just because it's so clear that this is probably not working, at least from my perspective, and she knows this. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Nicole and Mahmoud. Last but definitely not least, Danielle and Johann. Now, I want to be clear about something. Danielle drives me crazy. In this episode, we find out that her trip to the Dominican Republic is almost over. She's going to have to go back to New York. But on her next trip back to the Dominican Republic, she is going to live there. So she's going to stay. Their goal for this visit was to find an apartment, but she hasn't actually found one yet. Before she heads back to New York, her friend Sophie comes there to visit her and to meet Johann for the first time. They meet for lunch. And I just want to tell you guys something before I go on with this. I'm going to use like some different language instead of the actual words because I know that YouTube flags things sometimes. So yeah, so you'll understand in a minute. Danielle, Johann, and Sophie all get together for lunch, and Johann shares that his ex had voluntarily ended a pregnancy and that she did not lose the baby naturally. Danielle had thought that the ex had had a miscarriage, and Johann did not tell her the ex had chose to end the pregnancy. So Danielle really focuses in on Johann being a liar. I'm just floored because maybe he didn't tell her this and maybe he should have. You know, that's a whole thing. Did he need to? I don't know. Whatever. That's not even what I have a problem with. What bothers me is that Danielle lies all the time. She will stand next to him and say that she's lying in English because she knows that he can't speak English. There's the scene where they're standing there and she goes, I'm going to have to tell him while I'm here that we're not going back to New York. And he doesn't really understand what she's saying because he doesn't speak English. She's lying about their whole future and she's upset about him not mentioning something about an ex. I don't know. I don't get her. I don't get her thinking at all. I don't understand how she doesn't feel like a bad person. Like, I would feel guilty if I knew there was someone thinking their future was going to be one way and I just knew I wasn't going to cooperate and help them. You know, she actually says that she's in control of him getting his visa to come to America. I don't know. I don't care for her. I don't like how she treats him. Danielle also at one point tries to convince Johann that she should paint a saint on the wall of the butcher shop or on the outside of it, and he says that doesn't align with his faith. And then going forward, we see them in the car together, and Danielle is basically saying, you lied to me about what happened with this pregnancy. And the conversation between the two of them goes nowhere because his response is basically, why did it matter? Why did it matter what happened? There didn't end up being a baby. It doesn't matter what my ex chose to do. I told you and what the outcome was. And the outcome's the same either way. And Danielle just really seems upset about it. And again, I'm just saying, hey, that's really bold considering you lie and even talk about how you're lying to him in front of him. Like, I don't know. For me, Danielle has no issue putting other people down, but never acknowledges where she might be messing up or making mistakes. At the end, she says she wanted to have a child with who she thought he was, and now he's someone different. And that's where it ends. Let me know what you guys think about that. To me, him not telling her, yeah, he should have, but it's not a huge deal. It is the past, the outcome. He's right. The outcome was the same. To me, I don't know. It wasn't that big of a deal. It sounds like his ex made the decision, not him. I don't know. To me, it's just not that big of a deal. And again, I think it's because I'm watching her lie. It might be different if she was super honest with him and not judgmental and trying to push the things that she does onto him. But she does all of that and she's going to focus in on him and this issue. I don't know. I just don't really care for her, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is it a big deal that he didn't tell her? And is it a big enough deal to overcome all of the things that she does to him? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for coming to Happily Ever Reality. I know I've not been putting out a lot of videos, but I love when I get to, and I love all the comments I get. If you haven't already, go ahead and click like and subscribe, and I hope you come back.